Hello, good morning. Should I go ahead and start? Hope you're all doing well. So, my name is Andy Bell, and I am the department chair for the engineering program at Ivy Tech Community College in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And today I would like to talk to you about virtual reality and its use in education, and specifically engineering education. Okay, let's see. Go forward. I think I did that wrong. Okay, I'm having the first technical problem. How do I advance the slide? Oh boy, select the class. It's not advancing. You can't get the slide to advance.
Which channel are you on?
B.
Try channel A.
Okay. Now I can just hit the arrow with the up and down with the. This worked fine yesterday. Okay. The panel at the bottom right one is to advance. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry about that. So, Second Life for educators. And the picture that you see there is from our Ivy Tech Engineering webpage. Hopefully you can see that. Um, and we started back in 2020 in the spring when the pandemic hit to attempt to try to use Second Life to be able to supplement the kind of work that we were doing and teaching hands-on learning at Ivy Tech. And really, our focus was really more on two areas. One was to provide an ability for students to be able to do presentations, and then second, it was to be able to introduce CAD models, computer-aided models that were done with programs like Solidworks and that use programs like Blender to be able to adjust them so that you could use them in the world. The picture shows three crystalline unit structures that were some of the original shapes that we created, models that we created and uploaded. And then this picture at the bottom is a picture that we use quite a bit of to show.
Good morning.
Oh, hello. Okay. Can you hear me?
Should I go ahead and start?
Okay. I think I was just getting some feedback there. So anyway. So background was really what happened there? What happened there? Well, so in terms of our background, so we first investigated Second Life back in 2018, in the summer of 2018, to try to figure out exactly how we could integrate this into our engineering program. And of course, I went online and tried to check out what was currently there. I stumbled across this web page, or this site here, from Evergreen Island 3 from Washington State Community College, and it was very intriguing because it had animation, it had the ability to be able to walk around, to be able to change displays. It was a very nice setup. So I attempted to try to get some funding for us to be able to get our own island. The other thing I did was I looked online to try to find out what others had done specifically for education, and really more along the lines of CAD education, CAD, computer-aided design, and then it includes simulations too. And I was intrigued by this article that I found, Engineering Education Island, teaching engineering in a virtual world, which was an excellent article. I reached out to the author of the paper, Michael Callaghan, and he said, well, he was happy to hear from us, but pretty much they had bailed from Second Life and were on to different platforms now. But the article talked about some things that they were doing to include animations with electromechanical devices like DC motors. So I wanted to pursue that to see if we could duplicate that. So in terms of our use case for Second Life, the first thing that we did was try to use Second Life for poster presentations for students. And we created 6x9 meter poster boards. And of course, you can upload the images that would go on these poster boards, and students, what they typically would do is they would create the posters. I would grab them, convert them to JPEG files, then upload those to Second Life, and then place those textures on the poster boards. Currently, we have about 50 poster boards spread around the island that students have done posters on. Sometimes they're individual posters, sometimes they're group posters, and they go in Second Life and they present their posters, and we typically record those and post some of those on YouTube. Some of them will be on my YouTube channel. But they really enjoy being able to do this. This is a poster of one of our students doing Arduino projects. This is me flying right in front of our New Horizons, I think that's what they call it, from Linden Labs. We took an island that was already pre-built and have just been adding things to it as we go. We also came up with another approach, and this is really through just researching the web to try to figure out exactly how things are done, how things could be done using Second Life to be able to do presentations. And this is really the reason why I think I was asked to present here, was how we did this part of it, which this part of it is really doing the same thing as what I was just talking about. We still did a 6x3 meter poster. Let's see, let's go to the next page. Let me go back. we did the same thing, except this time instead of uploading the JPEG, we uploaded the JPEG to our Ivy Tech Engineering webpage. Then what happened is, if you do the web on a prem approach, and I have a hyperlink at the end of this that has references to all this material, web on a prem, which allows you to be able to hyperlink to a web page, and then display that image in your browser, and be able to see that image. Just it's really a great way to do it, and you don't have to upload any images into Second Life directly, so it makes things a lot smoother, I think, so you don't have to manage all of these files. But we do that, and so most of the presentations that we have today on our island were done that way. So this is now, like, that was all what students, kind of student-facing, student-centric kind of presentations, how you could do it that way. In terms of instructors, now I've not really done presentations in Second Life. This is really my first presentation in Second Life, where I've actually presented anything. So I'm new to this HUD that is available here. But I would do the same thing. I could do the same thing with web on a prem, and there's the reference there. If you look at the end of the presentation, it'll have the information for it. So you can get PowerPoint slides. That's the good news. The bad news is that way back when, the PowerPoint presentation program, PowerPoint, you used to be able to save your files as HTML files, and that was really nice, because then you basically had a web page created by PowerPoint to be able to make a web page that you could then use directly. But that capability Microsoft no longer supports. So we came up with an alternative version, which uses JavaScript and a CSS file that allows you to be able to just sequence through all your slides. You have individual control of your slides, just using the JavaScript, and then you can size it and put other information on there with your CSS file. Okay, you do need to, this approach requires you to save the presentation file as an image and upload it. Okay, that was the web on a prem. The web on a prem, you don't really need to do that, because the image is your browser, and that's what gets displayed in the world. So I can make this information here that's related to the oh, I'm sorry, I kind of got ahead of myself a little bit. David Taylor, the guy that has a lot of good stuff on YouTube about Second Life, suggested when he was doing slideshow presentations, and it was basically the web on the prem guy that I followed, suggested getting the slideshow light viewer to be able to do slideshows. That is one way to do it. You can do it, and that would be in World. and that would require you to upload every image at 10 Linden dollars per image. The alternative approach was the one that I show to the right here, which is basically a slideshow viewer that's made from JavaScript and CSS, but it's based upon using the browser in World. So next up really is a different topic. So that was the stuff I wanted to talk to you about in terms of presentations. Okay, which I think Second Life has been very good for us to be able to do that. The next thing up is a way to be able to tie what we learn with the CAD tools, like AutoCAD or Solidworks or some of these other programs, to Second Life, to either build models that we can use in World or to use them for gamification or things like that, or just to be able to build things. So, of course, you know the standard format for uploading a model in Second Life is a DAE file, but all the CAD programs, at least the ones that I'm familiar with, the best they can do is export STL files. STL files are what you would use to do 3D printing of models. It's a standard way to be able to communicate CAD models from one program to another. And STL files can also be imported into Blender and then converted as DAE files. That's the approach that I followed. It also allows you, the picture here in the middle of the screen shows a picture of something called a Boolean die. A Boolean die is, there's 6 fundamental gates that are in electrical engineering. So they're on a die face here, and probably for some kind of game, okay, that you could use. At least that's what I was thinking I would use it for. And that those die, or those STL files, are publicly available and typically free, so you can download as STL files. And then if you had a way to convert them to DAE files, then you could import those into World. Okay, and that's where Blender comes in. So with Blender, you can take either an STL file that you've created or you've downloaded from the web, add texture, add material, add texture, add the images, so to speak, on the various faces, and then import that into Second Life as a DAE model. When I first looked at Second Life and then looked at this engineering island, the thing that attracted me was really how could I integrate animation like a DC motor, that is something that our electrical engineers would learn about, integrate that into Second Life. And so based upon that Engineering Islands article that I was talking about earlier. So, and I kind of think the way I think is sequentially, systematically, step-by-step process. So step one is to basically draw all the parts that you want to use in the models that you have. And I did this in Second Life, and this was to mimic what was done by the people that had written that article on Engineering Island, to try to duplicate what they had. Second Life or Solidworks is a CAD program that is very, very precise in the way that it does things. That's the good news. The bad news is artistically, maybe it is a little bit too stiff to do things. Unlike Blender, it is more precise in terms of the way it does it. Less flexibility to add texturing, but it does give you the basis for the various models that you need to be able to make this DC motor. Once you get that DC motor made in multiple parts, here's the magnet, the horseshoe magnet that is imported into Blender. This is Blender. This is a what it would look like in the edit mode, in the texture mode, when you create a UV map for the colors for everything associated with the horseshoe magnet. So you can draw it in CAD and then bring it into Blender and then basically paint it, add materials or add textures so that it looks like you want it to look like once you upload it to Second Life. You do need to add a physics model. The physics model means that when you move around with your avatar in Second Life and you attempt to try to go through objects, move around objects, if an object has a physics file associated with it, you won't be able to walk right straight through it. You'll have to walk around it. So physics files allow you to do that. Here is the model of the rotor. That's also part of the overall motor, and it's fairly complicated, and I don't know whether you can really see the number of triangles and quads and vertices, etc., that are associated with each one of these models. But when you do zoom in there and you can take a look at it, the objective is to try to keep that count, effectively the graphical resolution, okay, as small as you can, so that it would cost the least when you upload it to Second Life. Okay, it still needs to look good, but you want it to be reasonable in terms of land impact, cost, etc. Okay, this shows the physics model on the left, which is a simplified version of what's on the right, and then this is the rotor that you would use in that model here. This is just one piece of the overall model. The next challenge really has to do with something that I was trying to figure out how to do this, and it deals with the fact that when you have spatially placed models, if you decide, well, I would like it to sort of look like this, and you, using Second Life, draw some things up, okay, you build some models, and you place them in the world relative to where you would like to see them. You might want that information that is difficult maybe to extract directly from the models that are in Second Life, because of the way that they reference their geometric shapes. But you can download, if you are using Firestorm, you can download the models and then import those DAE files as a single model into Blender, and then use that as a graphical reference for building other things, like to add cables or to align things up So that's what I did. I linked all the parts that I needed to use as graphical references, and then exported them, downloaded them from Second Life using the Firestorm viewer. Okay, that's kind of like what the same thing I've said here. The cables that I made with the cables that I made for this DC motor using Solidworks were kind of artificially looking. They were too stiff, right? Normal cables are going to have some organic feel to them, the way that they lay. They're going to be influenced by gravity and the flexibility of the wires. So you kind of wanted something maybe that was a little more artistic in view. It turns out that Blender is a great tool for being able to create these cables. And I recently discovered this. I do have a reference here, reference 16, that you can take a look at. But it's raised as using these Bezier curves and these NURBS circles to be able to define the layout of the cable, which looks more organic, and the diameter of the cable. So this is kind of showing some of that information about how to draw a cable in Blender. And then with that, then what you can do is add texture to them and then import those eventually into Second Life. But more importantly, you can actually align those cables to the geometric shape for the rest of the DC motor. So lining up those cables in Blender using the model that you downloaded from Second Life. That's what